Today's topic is comma, the punctuation comma. But before we talk about that, I want us to go to the earlier class and discuss or have a quick revision about what we talked about last time. If you remember, last time we talked about the simple present tense. So, can you remember what we talked about and discussed about the simple present tense? Yes, the simple present tense is one of the 4 verb forms of the simple tense, the present tense. And we said it is the first in the line of forms. The simple present tense comes first, usually. And it is also, unlike the other tense forms, a simpler way of expressing a time or action in this case. And we also had discussed a few ways of using the simple present tense. If you remember, the first one being to express, we use it to express habitual actions. Things that we do repeatedly. For example, he washes his face every morning. So this is something a person does repeatedly every day, very often. So if that is the case, we are expressing habitual actions. And if that is the case, we use the simple present tense. The other way or the other method of using the simple present tense that we talked about last time is to express general truths or scientific facts. If you remember, we gave an example that said the sun or the earth revolves around the sun. We even said that in the earlier days, people used to believe the idea that the sun was the one revolving around the sun. So this is also what? A general truth and a scientific fact. It is a proven scientific fact. Okay. Another one that we said is we use the present tense to talk about to express future, or in this case, near future plans. Things that we have planned, preordained, or near future plans. For example, the bus leaves at 3 a.m. This is something that is preordained or predetermined, or it is a near future plan. Okay. The other one that we said that we use the simple present tense is to express instructions. To express instructions. An example. Don't open the window. This is an example we gave last time when we were talking about giving or expressing instruction using the simple present tense. If you see here all of the verbs that we see here, leaves, revolves, washes, they're all what? In their simple present tense form. So even though some of them have ES, or some of them are not, don't have ES, but it's still in the simple present form. These verbs use ES, if you see here, because what comes before them, the subject, is a third person singular. If you say here, if the bus it represents it. Again, the ers represents it. In this case, in the first example, he represents what? A person. And again, it represents third person singular. So if that is the case, our verbs, they take es or s depending on our verb. So this is the fourth way of using the simple present tense. And finally, we talked about to express present situations or conditions. Present situations or conditions. For example, she goes to the library now. Or he's hungry now. I am hungry now. She's hungry now. So this is what? Telling us we use the common time expression now to talk about that's happening right now. The action, the situation is happening at the present moment. So these are some of the most important ways of using the simple present tense. And we also talked about how we add, when we add IES or ES, when we use the simple present tense in the verb. So these were all the ideas and more that we talked about last time, depending on the simple present tense. But now, let's go to today's topic, which is, it is taken from Unit 1, Lesson 2. Comma. Comma is what? Comma is something that we use very often when we're writing. We use this a lot, yes? We use it in different situations, but what is it? Let's define it, or let's talk about it further. Comma is what? A punctuation mark. It is a punctuation mark. We use it for different situations. We use it to separate items in a list. We use it during conjunctions, before conjunctions. We use it for different reasons and for different things. To, for example, separate dates and numbers. It has a lot of uses, and we use this a lot everywhere you go. For example, let's say you go to a bank. If you go to a bank, a lot of the bankers in a bank, they use numbers. And in numbers, we use comma to separate the numbers, to see how much the amount of the number is. And we'll talk about it in detail later on. So it is a punctuation mark, and in punctuation marks, we have two types. We have two types. We separate them in two types. The first one is external punctuation mark and internal punctuation marks. So what are internal and external punctuation marks? So in this case, there are punctuation marks that we use if we say external at the end of a sentence, and if we say internal in the middle of a sentence. We use these punctuations, the second ones, in the middle of a sentence. Comma is one of the internal punctuation marks. We use it when we are trying to separate, for example, a list of items. We use it in the middle. And again, when we are trying to separate numbers, again, we use comma in the middle of the numbers. But there are punctuation marks that we use at the end For example, the first one, external punctuation marks. They are, for example, period or full stop, question mark, question mark, exclamation mark or point, exclamation point. So these are what? These are externals. So we use them at the end of a sentence. We'll give a few examples. The first one, for the first one. Example. She goes to school. Full stop. Yes? Or period. So if we finish a sentence, at the end of a finished sentence, we have what? A period or a full stop. So that is what? External. We didn't use it in the middle. We used it at the end or outside the sentence. So if that is the case, we say it is external punctuation mark. Okay, another one. Another example. Do you study math? Question mark. Do you study math? So again, we have not used the question mark in the middle of the sentence. We used it at the end of the sentence. So if that is the case, it is what? An external punctuation mark. Another example. What an amazing book! Exclamation point. What an amazing book. So we have finished our idea. And if that is the case, then again, it is external. It is not internal. So we have finished our thought. So we use exclamation point. If that is the case, then all of these, they show what? They are punctuation, but they are external punctuations. What about, let's see a few examples of an internal punctuation. The second one is internal punctuation marks. For example, comma. Our topic for today, we have semicolon, colon. These are what? These are very common punctuation marks that we use in the middle of a sentence. For example, don't forget, we have lots and lots of punctuation marks. I'm showing you a few of them. Okay, the first one, comma, for example. He likes to dance, comma, sing, and play an instrument. We have used comma here. When or where did we use comma here? We used comma in the middle of a sentence. If that is the case, and that is how we usually use comma, and it's showing what? Internal punctuation. Internal meaning in the middle of a sentence. So it is inside the sentence. Okay, so let's give another example. Aster went to the library. Her sister went to play football. See, we have used again semicolon. Yes, semicolon. If you, a semicolon is what? A symbol that has a dot above what? A comma. So a semicolon. And we used it to separate two independent ideas. We use it to separate two independent ideas or two independent clauses. Here we have Aster went to the library. That is an independent idea. Her sister went to play football. Again, an independent idea, but we used what? Semicolon to join these two together. And if you see the position of the semicolon, we used it in the middle of a sentence. We did not use it outside at the end like we used full stop here. So if that is the case, it is an internal punctuation mark. Okay, I will give you a third example for colon. The secrets of the book. The secrets of the book. Return of Heman Rudian. This is what? A topic. A topic. So it is a topic of a book. The secrets of the book is what? The main topic of the book. But what comes after is what? It's showing us a specific type of the book. This book, The Secrets of the Book, is, let's say, a series or a trilogy. That means it is not a one-book series. It has what? We have The Secret of the Book for, let's say, 4 books that are titled The Secret of the Book. But 4 of them have different subtitles. So in order to show that, we used what? A colon in the middle. In this case, this exact book is what? The Return of Heman Rudian. So if that is the case, we use colon to separate, or we use it to show topics, or to separate ratios, or for different situations. And if that is the case, colon is used in the middle of a sentence. So that shows its internal punctuation use. So these and many others, we have many other punctuations. We use them either to show external punctuation or internal punctuation. Okay, since we said all of this about punctuations and the many uses of punctuations, let's go to comma. What are the many uses of comma? The first one is to express or show, in this case, a separated list of items. Or we use it to separate list of items, okay? We use it to separate list of items. For example, my mother bought carrots, onions, and potatoes. If you see here, we have used what? Comma to separate lists of items. For example, if we didn't stop here with potatoes, and if we added tomatoes and cabbage and so on, we will be still continuing with commas. So we use comma to express or show or even separate what? List of items, okay? List of items. Another example. they have math, comma, English, comma, science, and art classes in the morning. If you see here, we have used comma here, here. Yes, 2 times. We have used it 2 times. Again, we have used it internally. That means we have used it in the middle of a sentence, so to show its internal use. And we have used it to separate items. In this case, the items are similar, right? If you see here, the items that my mother bought are similar. Carrots, onions, potatoes, these are what? Similar items. Again, if you see the second example, math, English, science, art, these are what? Similar items again. Okay, so the first one is to show separated list of items or to show list of items. Okay, what is the second use of comma? The second use of comma is, for example, to separate numbers or dates. Earlier when I was talking about comma, I said a lot of people in the banks, I gave an example, they use what? Comma to separate their numbers, to see how much the number they're using is. Let's see, for example, I have 10,000 birr in my bank. If I say this, I have used comma here. Where did I use it? I used it in the number. To show separation in the number, I used what? Comma. And when I used comma, I'm showing the amount of the number of money I have. So in this case, I have what? 10,000 birr in my bank. Okay. She was born on June 30, 2015. So if that is the case, again, this is showing dates. The first one was talking about numbers, right? The second one is showing dates. When we're showing dates, we have used comma to separate the month and the day with the year. So first we have the month, we have the day of the month, and we use comma. After that, we showed the year of when this person was born. So if that is the case, we use what? Commas. So we use commas to separate numbers and dates. That is the second use. What about its third use? The other one is to separate coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions are conjunctions that are commonly known as fanboys. Fanboys stand for, they are abbreviation, and they stand for and, yet, so, but, and, nor, and the like. So fanboys. So let's give an example. I didn't study, comma, so I might not pass the exam. If you see here, we have used the coordinating conjunction, so, and before so. So to separate conjunctions, and we add the comma before the conjunctions. In this case, we add the comma before the conjunctions. If but was here or yet was here, it still would be before the conjunctions. So I didn't study, so I might not pass the exam. So this is what? Cause and effect. It's giving us cause and effect. Because we did not do something, or because we did something, an outcome or a result would happen, or a consequence will occur. So we are showing here, we are using comma to separate a conjunction, and we use it before a conjunction. Okay. Number 4, the other use of a comma is to add a non-essential information. To add a non-essential information. Sometimes, if you see sentences where there are two commas in a sentence, and an additional information is added, so that information added may not be essential, may not be needed, but it's added nonetheless to give us what? More ideas. But it is not an essential idea. For example, my mother, comma, my mother, who is the best cook, again, comma, will arrive soon. So if you see here, if we take who is the best cook out, our sentence will still make sense, and we don't need the added information. It is not essential. But we have used this non-essential, or we have added an information about my mother by using two commas and adding additional information. My mother, who is the best cook, which is not essential, which is not necessary to this idea, because our main idea is my mother will arrive soon. That is our main information. But we have added who is the best cook, an additional information. If that is what we're doing in sentences, we usually have what? Or we usually use comma in the middle. Okay. This is the 4th way of using comma when we're using it in a sentence. The 5th one is we use it before tag questions. We use it before tag questions. For example, tag questions are questions that are asked at the end of a sentence. Okay. For example, you will come to dinner, comma, you will come to dinner, won't you? Won't you? Question mark. Okay? You will come to dinner, comma, won't you? So, tag questions are questions that we have at the end of a sentence, that we find at the end of a sentence. You will come to dinner. I could have finished the sentence here with a period, but we didn't, because we want to ask a question, a tag question, something that is tagged along a sentence. So in this case, you will come to dinner, comma, we used our punctuation, comma, in the middle, and then we ask the question, won't you? Question mark. So that is how we use comma with tag question. Let's give another example. They will go to the cinema. Again, comma. Won't they? Question mark. If you see here, we have an external and an internal punctuation, right? External punctuation. We have our comma, we have internal punctuation, we have a comma, and external, we have a question mark. So again, we have asked our question at the end. That means after the comma, we have our question. They will go to the cinema could be a sentence that we could finish here with a full stop, but we didn't. We have a comma. After a comma, we have our tag question, which is, won't they? So they will go to the cinema, won't they? So that is how we use tag questions, or that we have tag questions. And that is the many uses of commas when we use commas in different situations. And I'm sure you have gotten ideas and examples. And now let's write a few exercises and do them together. Complete the following sentences with the correct punctuation. Okay. The first one. Can you tell me? I saw a lion, a tiger, and a bear at the zoo. Full stop. Number 2. Yes, I will finish my homework soon. This bag costs $50,000. Sir, my father, who is a doctor, works in the hospital. My father, who's a doctor, works in the hospital. Number 5, on December 25, 2003, we celebrated Christmas. Okay, so I want you to put the correct punctuation. In this case, our commas, because we've been talking about commas. Commas are missing everywhere in these sentences. I want you to put them in their correct position, and we'll get back and do it together. So I will give you 3 minutes to complete this sentence, these exercise, and we'll see it together. Okay, I'm sure you all did a wonderful job and you tried your best to complete these sentences with the correct punctuation use. Okay, let's see it together and see how well you did. The first one, I saw a lion, a tiger, and a bear at the zoo. So if you remember our earlier examples when we were talking about a separated list of items, we used onions, we used potatoes, and we used carrots. And in the middle, we used what? Comma. So I saw a lion, one, and then we have a comma, right? We put a comma here. A tiger, because we have and here, we don't need a comma. So and a bear at the zoo. So that is the correct use of the punctuation comma. Okay, number 2. Yes, I will finish my homework soon. After yes or no, we use what? Comma. It is usually a yes or no question. With a yes or no question, we use comma. Okay, number 3. This bag costs 50,000 birr. So this is a number. Earlier we said we use comma to separate numbers and dates. That is the case. If in the middle of 50,000, we use what? Comma to separate the numbers. Okay, number 4. My father, who is a doctor, works in the hospital. If you remember, this is one of the examples we give or the uses we talked about of a comma, the punctuation comma, which is we put in non-essential information to add more information, but it is not essential. We can leave out that idea and still the sentence will make a good meaning for us. So in this case, my father works in the hospital is our main idea. But we have put in an additional non-essential information that is separated by a comma. So my father, comma, who is a doctor, again, comma, 2 commas. When we are separating non-essential information, we put 2 commas. So my father, who is a doctor, works in the hospital. Okay, number 5 and the last one is on December 25, 2003, we celebrated Christmas. So in this case, it is similar to the third question, which is separating numbers and dates with a comma. So on December 25, 2003, we celebrated Christmas. That is the case. Earlier, we talked about how we separate numbers and dates with a comma. So on December 25, comma, after the month and the date, we use comma. 2003, we celebrated Christmas. That is how we use commas, and in this case, that is how we use the commas in these sentences. I'm sure you all did a wonderful job, and I'm sure you're going to practice comma using it in different sentences by using it before a conjunction to separate different lists of items, when you're using dates, numbers, and when you want to add non-essential information in a sentence, you also use it. So thank you all for tuning in to this class, and I hope you get to come and tune in the next time and see and learn many things. Thank you all for coming, and goodbye.